Hey everybody, I hope that you are doing well. I am very thrilled to be showing you this recipe today. We found this one a couple of years ago. It's so beautiful, it's so flavorful, I just love it. So it comes from the Whole Bowls Cookbook, and the recipe, she tends to just tell you what it is. So the recipe is called black beans with butternut squash, black rice, and chimichurri. So again, with the Whole Bowls, she's putting together a combination of healthy things in one bowl. So your roasted butternut squash, your black rice, and then black beans, your chimichurri sauce sprinkled on top. So beautiful, and it tastes as beautiful as it looks. So I have done a number of things in order to make this recipe move along nice and quick. Do you see how much work I put into that? And then it just fell down anyways. So I yesterday went ahead and cut up my squash. I knew I was gonna be using it today and that it can handle being in the fridge cut up for a few hours like that. So your squash gets mixed with a couple tablespoons of olive oil, just enough to help the roasting process go. You don't have to use oil if you're trying to avoid the fats or whatever. You could just roast it plain. I just find I prefer it with the oil roasting. It just keeps it a little wet. So my oven is now preheated to 400, which is great. That was a full teaspoon of salt because I have a double batch of the squash going here. And so I'm just going to give this a quick stir to make sure that my oil and my salt is dispersed equally. I've also put together some black rice, which is going in the rice cooker. Black rice is sort of like brown rice in its need for cooking. It needs to cook for a little bit. It also needs a lot of water. So I have 3 cups of rice going to 6 cups of water in the rice cooker. And that takes probably 45 minutes. So let me just take a moment here to adjust my racks, and then this is going to go in for 25 to 30 minutes. And I'm using the roasting function on my oven, which is pretty intense. So I'm going to make sure to put that timer on for 25 minutes and not neglect it. So with the rice going, my next step is beans, and the recipe calls for 2 cups of black beans. So I have a double batch here. I have 4 cans of black beans with 2 cups of vegetable broth put in here. And then we're going to add some seasoning to all of this. So the recipe calls for 2 teaspoons of red wine vinegar for 1 batch. 2.5 teaspoons is roughly a tablespoon, so I'm just going with not filled to the brim tablespoons of my red wine vinegar. It's just faster for me. I like to go fast. You know me. And then cumin, it actually calls for a lot of cumin as well. 2 teaspoons of cumin per batch. That's 4 teaspoons of cumin, a ton of cumin. But you're going for a very specific flavor profile there. Go ahead and use all of that. You guys are with me a lot when I use up my spices. I suppose we cook together a lot. So then paprika, it's a half teaspoon, so I need a full teaspoon for a double batch. And then a full teaspoon of salt. I'm actually going to take that down to a half because my beans have salt from the can, and I don't feel like I need to have quite that much salt. So those are the ingredients that go in your beans, and that's going to give you a really flavorful bean. And so what you're going to do with that is just let that simmer for about 10 minutes. And I had already been getting it warm, but I'm going to let it simmer with these particular ingredients for 10 minutes. So that will be lovely. And it's sort of like if you follow Brazilian beans and things like that, they typically have this type of a juicy flair, and they're often served with the rice. The black rice, it just gives you such a beautiful texture in your mouth. It's so happy. So one thing that I need to do is run over and grab some lemon juice. You'll get to see the rest of my kitchen. It's not so bad right now, actually. Oh, I need a new lemon juice. So What we're gonna make now is the chimichurri sauce. So I have a food processor ready to go. I've also done some prep here as well with the parsley, the cilantro, and the scallion. So it's not so horrible because you're sticking everything into a food processor. But I like to kind of streamline my processes, and I find that my herbs and scallions actually keep better when I kind of get them prepped ahead of time and stick them in a different container. So the recipe calls for 5 scallions, so that's 10, and I don't know, I've already cut it all up. So I'm taking a guess as to how much scallion I need. I could have done better. I could have chopped up exactly what I needed and put it in, but I didn't. 1 clove of garlic each. I'm not chopping them ahead of time because they're going in the food processor to do all this crazy stuff. A cup of packed fresh cilantro and a cup of packed fresh parsley. So I have a little more cilantro than I do parsley because that's my flavor preference. I basically have 2 bunches of cilantro and a bunch of parsley. I wasn't too picky about the stems like I sometimes am because it's going into the food processor. But so I'm going to put this whole thing in here because this is a sauce that really is pulled together by the flavor of your herbs. That's the whole point of the sauce, and it's really good. So I've also tried other chimichurri sauce recipes, by the way, and I much prefer this one in particular. So I don't know why this one is so great, but I've tried other ones, and they just felt so bitter to me. I really like this recipe. So 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. So I'm going to need 4. This is a brand new lemon, so I have to be so careful. If you squeeze the bottle when it's brand new, it just starts throwing lemon juice everywhere. So I'm just going to shake it to get it out. Red wine vinegar, so this is a common ingredient for this particular recipe. 2 tablespoons, again, per batch, so I'm going to go with 4. This is a sauce that is so worth it in the end. Oh my goodness, I love it. A teaspoon of salt total. She often has a very salty sauce. I'm going to go with a teaspoon, not 2 teaspoons for the whole thing. That's just my preference. Then she calls for chili flakes, and I only have some cayenne pepper on hand, so I'm going to use that cayenne pepper, just a couple sprinkles in there. And then it's actually a ton of oil. So if you are working in a whole plant-based way, this is not that. And in fact, that might actually be why the other recipe was so bitter. Maybe because it didn't have any oil in it. Maybe that helps to dilute a little bit what's happening. So it's a 1/3 cup of oil per batch, which means I need 2/3 cups of oil in order to make my batch work. So that's all the ingredients that go in there. And then you just turn it on. So pulsing to start. We'll kind of just mix things around. And then you can go ahead and blend. It's meant to be nice and pureed together. I'm also going to take my spatula, take a pause, and wipe down the sides a little bit so that all those good herbs get incorporated into the experience. You kind of want it to be a reasonably mixed together sauce. So you can see it's coming off, it's getting thinner and thinner as the blades are chopping, but I can still see little bits of herbs, so I'm allowing it to keep going a little bit. I've also cheated a ton. She actually, she pulses her garlic first, and then she adds in a bunch of stuff and blends it, and then with the machine running, she slowly drizzles the oil in. So, you know, fast cooks, they never follow the directions to a T, but just so you know, she does the oil as a slow drizzle after the fact. And so you could go as much or as little as you want, but mine is roughly chopped there in a reasonable way. And that's really all there is to this recipe. It goes really fast, even though there's all these various parts, because my squash has 17 minutes to go, but I don't need to deal with it. And my beans have been simmering probably 5 minutes, so I'll probably turn those off soon. My sauce is done. I had done a bunch of prep work, which made it go really fast. And my rice is cooking, and when it's done, it's done. So this is the kind of thing where, if you're thinking to yourself, how do I get it all done? I'm done now. I put 10 minutes in, and I can walk away. And that was because, right, when I came home from the grocery store, that's a lighter day that I choose the grocery store, right? I chopped up those herbs, and I chopped up that squash so that today, when I'm running around and busy, I don't have to take the time to do that. And it's a really tasty meal, and you can make it at one point in the day and then reheat later. It does leftovers really well. When I do store rice in the fridge, I usually put a little bit of water over the rice just to keep it from getting too dry in the fridge. So that is the meal. I hope you enjoy it, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.